Green Geeks and Nerds, I'm Lazy Universe and I'm White Nerdy, and welcome to a Lazy Universe Top 10, in which I count down anything that I want to. And this Top 10 was one I was kind of thinking about doing for the longest time, only because there's so many comic book TV shows, movies, etc. that had been announced. So it really had my brain thinking of like certain characters I want to see or certain villains that I want to see. And one that necessarily interested me, but it's not going to be released for quite some time. But it still would be nice to count down my top 10 favorite villains I want to see in this film. Is, I believe it's called either Dynamic Duo or Brave and the Bold, I'm pretty sure it's Brave and the Bold, that's going to introduce Damian into the mainstream DC Universe. And if you guys don't know, or if you don't care, I'm actually a really big fan of Damian Wayne. I really did like Son of Batman. It's one of my favorite DC animated movies, and I think that they did a really good job with the origin of Damian. But I really do like Damien. I know that a lot of people are like, ugh, that little twerp. But to be honest, I really do like Damien. I even remember one of the first Batman comics that I bought when I wanted to get back into comic books was the introduction to Damien, where he beat the crap out of Tim Drake. Yes, I actually own that issue. But we're going to count down my top 10 favorite villains or villains that I want to see in The Brave and the Bold. Now, for those of you that are unaware, my rules are just plain simple. This is just my list and my opinions, so nobody come after me for being like, for example, if I put like Joker at like number 10, some people would be like, but I thought you were a major Joker fanboy. I am. But it's just my picks and opinions because I want to try to focus on the villains that really Damien was the one that really dealt with, or the ones that have a vengeance with Damien. And trust me when I say there's a lot of villains that Damien has that has a vengeance toward Damien. Damien and Jason are not the two nicest Robins, but I probably would rather hang out with Damien than I would Jason. Because Jason would still snap my neck when I'm not looking. Then again, so would Damien, but Damien had more restraint thanks to Nightwing and John Kent Superboy. So, just honor my picks and opinions. I'm just doing this for fun, and these are just my picks. So, you guys in the comments down below, I know a lot of people will probably be like Pink Flamingo, Professor Pig, Mr. Toad, who are villains that Damien dealt with. But this is Damien and his father. So, not necessarily Dick Grayson as Batman. So, that's gonna throw this whole thing off. But without further ado, let's dive into my. Excuse me. Let's dive into my DC Ultimate Character Guide that I have here, and let's count down my top 10 villains that I want to see in The Brave and the Bold. At number 10, The Riddler. The Riddler makes sense because thanks to Matt Reeves' The Batman, he became much more popular, but it would make sense to have The Riddler in another film, especially if it is the Matt Reeves version of the character, which James Gunn admits that it's not. But even still, he could still throw him in there and have Edward Nigma be going against the Dynamic Duo in their very first outing, especially pissing off poor Damien for trying to figure out his stupid yet easy, nefarious riddles, even to the point where he might even kidnap Damien and then question Batman, like the true villain that he is, about solve my riddles, find your son, or else something bad will happen to him. Plus, Riddler is an all-time favorite Batman villain of most people, so it would make sense just to have him in there, especially to make most fanboys and fangirls very happy about his inclusion in the universe. At number 9, the Penguin. The Penguin is really an obvious choice, and he really does make sense in the whole grand scheme of things. You can have it be that Oswald Cobblepot wants to go up against the Dynamic Duo, especially, we'll just say, for example, that Damien basically stopped one of his, arms deals or drug deals that was going on in Gotham, and so he wants revenge on a little twerp, so he goes after the Dynamic Duo. It just makes sense for Oswald. Plus, also, just like Riddler, Penguin is an all-time favorite for people, especially Colin Farrell, the Penguin series, and again, Matt Reeves, the Batman, that basically relaunched their popularity. Also, James Gunn admitted that the Penguin was going to be in his universe, possibly played by Paul Giamatti. So hey, I mean, the Brave and the Bold would be a great opportunity for him to try to see what he can do and show his stuff at being one of Batman's most underrated villains. At number 8, the Joker. Now, I know that the Joker has always been in a lot of the Batman movies, but it would make sense to throw him in here as well. But you can have a nice little twist on it. Just imagine that this new criminal called the Joker is making Batman very nervous, especially since he dealt with him in his early years. But until Joker kidnaps Damian, holds him hostage, and basically beats and tortures him, Batman must figure out where the Joker is hiding his son and if he can get him back. It would make for a very interesting and also very dark story, which I don't think that James Gunn would do, but then again, you never know in the grand scheme of things what somebody could plan, but it would make for a very intense movie with a very intense setting, especially to have Damian get revenge against the Joker, especially at the end for torturing him for so long. At number 7, the Man-Bat. Man-Bat makes sense because Damian has a history with Man-Bat, especially since, well, his mother and also somebody that we'll talk about later on this list basically kidnapped him so he could make a legion of Man-Bat soldiers that would work for Talia al Ghul and revenge for Ra's al Ghul. So, yeah, you can have it be that Kirk Langstrom wants revenge against Robin because his mother dipped him over and by accident transformed him into the Man-Bat creature that we know to this day. And so he told Damian, I'm gonna get my revenge on you for what your mother did to me. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, that does make it for an interesting story, and you can also have him tie in with another villain that I will talk about later on this list, who does share a history with John Damian. But yeah, we need more Man-Bat love in the DC universe, so why not include him in the Brave and the Bold and just make a lot of people happy? Number 6, Scarecrow. We haven't seen Scarecrow in a long time in the movie universe except for Batman Begins, so it would be nice to see Dr. Jonathan Crane yet again. You can have it be that Dr. Crane wants to get more funding from Bruce Wayne, but since his son came to live with him, he politely declined and said that he had to focus on his son and basically have his son, learn the prospects of the company and whatnot. Eventually, that someday it will be his. Jonathan Crane gets pissed and becomes Scarecrow, the Professor of Fright, and thus he uses his fear gas to torment the dynamic duo, especially challenging them to a much bigger fight. Would be for an awesome story, especially a dark one, and if the people behind it, the writers, can basically play around with Scarecrow and the fears of both Damian and Batman. It would be very, very interesting to see what the greatest, deepest fears of their minds really is. Number 5, Two-Face. We know that Two-Face is going to be played by Sebastian Shaw, so it would be nice to get to see more of him. Or, if they're not going to use Sebastian, they could have his origin be a lot differently. You can have it be that Harvey Dent is this main up and coming young attorney at law in the DC universe. He works alongside Batman and Robin. He even helps him out. That is until he starts doing some shady stuff behind the scenes, and then Damian finds out and throws acid at half of his face, basically scarring and tormenting him. He wants revenge upon the little brat, so he turns himself into Two-Face. And yeah, you can always have the big bad horror like in the animated series be implemented in here, and it would be awesome to see much more Two-Face love within the DC universe that he long so deserves. Number 4, the ventriloquist and Scarface. I said it once before, I'll say it again. We really need to have more Scarface love. He's one of my all-time favorite Batman villains, and it's just so sad that we don't get much love with him. But yeah, you could have the ventriloquist, whether it be Arnold Wesker or the new woman, or even the woman from the Gail Simone Batgirl, basically come into picture, especially the one from Gail Simone's Batgirl would really work. You can have her be good friends with Damian Wayne until she starts talking to him about something called Scarface. Damian wants to know more about it, but she tells him, oh, don't worry, we'll meet Mr. Scarface eventually. He goes and tells his father, who looks into it, and figuring out that the girl, you might as well say in a sense, is possessed by the mad puppet, and just start a reign of terror upon Gotham. Again, the Gail Simone ventriloquist Quest and Scarface would definitely work great for a Damian Wayne Batman movie. I mean, good God, that would some dark storytelling, especially to have little Damien make a dark friend, as dark as he is, but then turn against him once he won't meet or talk to Mr. Scarface. Number 3, Talia al Ghul. Now, yes, in the grand scheme of things, you might be scratching your head going, huh? Damien's own mother? But hear me out here. After Talia gets injured from trying to save her father Wade and her son Damien, she is stabbed by a villain who we'll talk more about in the number 1 spot, and thus she is injured. She takes her injuries in the Lazarus pit, but then she automatically goes crazy, and thus her own lover and son must fight against her, making for a pretty awesome Batman movie where both son and father must go up against lover slash mother. Really interesting stuff there if they ever decide to do it. But even still, it would be nice to see Talia even make a cameo, either at the beginning or at the end of Brave and the Bold, and set up a much larger universe that will tie into other movies, which I'm sure will be the plan for DC at this time. At number 2, Ra's al Ghul. Yes, the man, myth, and legend himself, and little Damien grandfather. And it just makes too much sense. You can have it be that Ra's gets really injured by, again, who we'll talk about at number 1, and thus he goes into the Lazarus pit. And he stays in there for a long time, since to very serious injuries. When he comes out, he asks his daughter Talia where young Damien is, and Talia says, well, I had him go live with his father. Ra's just gives her that father look, and then goes straight to Gotham City to hunt down his grandson. Thus his grandson needs to be the true next head of the demon, or demon's head. Really would be interesting to see Ra's al Ghul again, and if you want to have him be played by Liam Neeson again, well, that gets a big thumbs up for me. But while Ra's would be awesome, especially as a cameo character, there is only one person that would make so much sense to have in a Brave and the Bold movie, and he is, you might as well say, pretty much Damien's biggest foe. So, just who would be my number 1 pick for this movie as a villain I really want to see? And my number 1 pick for a villain that I want in Batman Brave and the Bold? Deathstroke. Deathstroke has a long history against Ra's al Ghul, has a long history with Batman, and has a starting history with Damien. You can never beat that Deathstroke attack the Ra's al Ghul Academy, the League of Shadows, and thus kills Ra's al Ghul in front of Damien. Damien becomes horrified and angry by what Deathstroke did, and wants revenge against the world's greatest assassin. So, Damien starts trying to hunt down Deathstroke, learns his real name, tries to get information from other people about him, until finally Deathstroke shows up and he's like, you want a challenge, Robin? I can really give you one. Both you and your father will die by my hands. And thus it becomes a battle of Damien versus Deathstroke, which I can guarantee I am not the only Damian Wayne fan that wants to see them go head to head. Especially for Damien, who is a master of swordplay, going up against Deathstroke, again another master of swordplay. And it would be awesome against it. And especially since Teen Titans is becoming a mainstream movie, you can set Deathstroke up for future events, especially with the Titans. But that is going to be it, ladies and gentlemen. That is my top 10 villains I want to see in Batman the Brave and the Bold. So, do you agree with my list? Who are some top 10 villains that you want to see in Batman the Brave and the Bold whenever it gets released? Let me know in the comments down below, and I'm willing to basically bet that it will be between either Ra's al Ghul or Deathstroke. But we really need more ventriloquist love, especially since, if you remember, one of the villains talked about for Matt Reeves' The Batman was going to be ventriloquist. And then they decided, no, we're never going to get the ventriloquist in any Batman movie, are we? Probably not. So, let me know in the comments down below who are your top 10 picks or top 5 picks or just your favorite pick overall that you would want to see in Batman and Brave and the Bold. Let me know in the comments down below. While you're down there, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, hit that bell icon to be notified every single time I make an upload. I really Universe, I want nerdy keep it on. This has been a Lazy Universe Top 10. Thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, and as always, take care.